The Hellenic historian Herodotus, among others, made a list of what he considered to be the 7 wonders of the ancient world, although I suppose at the time it was the contemporary world. These included the lighthouse at Alexandria, the Colossus of Rhodes, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and others. These wonders, spread throughout the world, were memorable and iconic enough to be kept alive in histories all the way to modern times. The idea of modern wonders of the world and natural wonders of the world entered the public conscious again in the 1800s. And now there are various lists from various sources of different types of wonders throughout the world. I didn't know this until I started preparing this video, but there's even a 7 Wonders of the Underwater World list, which is a pretty fun name to say. So how does this relate to world building and dungeon mastering? Well, personally, I love to base things in my world off of real-world events, peoples, and cultures. As a student of linguistics, this includes real-life languages too. So if you're like me and you take all these real-world inspired things and put them in your world, or put things inspired by them in your world, how do you make your world come across as unique or fantastical and not super realistic, not just like our real world? Well, that's a much bigger question than just the topic of this video, but I hope this video can be a start to answering that question. To put it briefly, I think making your own wonders of your own world can be a good start in making your world feel unique to yourself, or if you're dungeon mastering, to your players. I came up with this idea when I started prepping for my current campaign, which takes place in my Mediterranean equivalent of my world, a place with ancient civilizations of various types. Of course, instead of just having ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, we now also in this world have elves, dwarves, and giants mainly, and some other races too, but those are the big ones in this part of my world. And I figured if the players are going to be traveling the sea and going through all of these different lands that share this connection to the sea, and somewhat have a shared history, right, then it will be important to know the myths and the cultural knowledge that these areas have. It'll be important to have this sort of background to be able to make the NPCs and the areas seem relatable and feasible. And I realized, what better way to come up with some world-based myth than to come up with the wonders of the world. Now, obviously, these should be unique to your world. They could still be inspired by real things. I have a lighthouse in my game as well, but it's not in the Egypt equivalent. Obviously, you can take inspiration. I have colossi that are somewhat similar to the Colossus of Rhodes, but are different. They were built by giants. They weren't built by Greek men in the Isle of Rhodes, right? And I don't think you need to have 7. You can have any number as long as you have some, then I think it's going to be a help. For instance, I somewhat arbitrarily decided on 10. Why not? And I also think that to give the impression of these being wonders of the ancient world, or older wonders, some of them should be lost or destroyed. Not all of them, but some of them should be lost or destroyed. There's a great video that Matt Colville did on the subject of dead empires, and I think this topic relates. I haven't watched that video in a while, but the takeaway I took from it was that every great D&D setting takes place after some greater older empire or empires, and that part of your setting's basis should involve the hunt for lost artifacts, lost knowledge, lost technology, or in this case, lost wonders, miracles of engineering, great construction techniques, stuff like that. You get the idea. As I begin to brainstorm the wonders of my world, I also found that doing so really helped in fleshing out the cultures of the world. While knowing the details of exactly how these monuments were constructed is not super important, knowing why certain monuments were so important, or knowing why they were constructed in the first place, can really help inform you of the culture that existed in that area then, which also probably relates to the current culture of whichever area you're looking at. This can be especially useful if you use the great trope of current emperors and kings trying to reclaim the greatness of old. To give an example from my world, and I warn you that this next part will be very self-indulgent, obviously I'm talking about my own world here, but I have a few wonders of my world that still exist and are very reflective of the people that built them and the people that still use them. In this case, one and the same, really. One example is the Great Canals of Sunthari. 2 massive canals that connect the Mediterranean equivalent of my world to other seas, the Black Sea equivalent and the Indian Ocean equivalent. These canals that connect these massive bodies of water that connect dozens of empires and realms are obviously great trade opportunities. Everyone wants to take this route. It's the quickest, it's the safest, and it brings lucrative trade opportunities as a result. And nowadays, these canals even have great cannons, massive early cannons embedded in bunkers that overlook these canal entrances. The people who built them are dwarves that exist in the area of land between the 2 canals. Obviously, like other dwarves, these dwarves are great miners, but I figure that these great canals are proof that these dwarves are great engineers as well. And again, if I hadn't thought of the idea of the canals and the dwarves being the ones who built them, I wouldn't have thought of this. Now I know that these dwarves of this area are great engineers. Beyond this, these dwarves are, it follows, great entrepreneurs. They levy tariffs and duties on the goods that come through here. There's taxes that you have to pay if you want to come through here with your goods. There are other services involved. Obviously, these dwarves get to use the canals on their own for much reduced rates, right? Obviously, these dwarves are entrepreneurs. They have a business sense to them. They're more than just artisans and miners and engineers, but they're businessmen, right? And now I know a little bit more about these dwarves, as well as these icons of the Middle Sea, of this part of my world. The Suntharian dwarves bring pride with them, and they know that their canals bring with them great bargaining power, even in the furthest reaches of the sea, right? And that's pretty intense. And from that, conflict can arise. What if other people don't want to pay the tolls and taxes that come along with buying passage through the canals? What if people want to take the canals for themselves? What if people want to take the cannons that now guard them? That technology is still a closely guarded secret. From a dungeon master's perspective, all of this could be turned into great adventure hooks. Even without that, now I have something that informs the Suntharian dwarves of my world when I play them as NPCs. When the players meet a Suntharian dwarf, I kind of know their background and their culture now. And beyond that, it just makes the world feel more unique, at least to me, and hopefully to my players as well. My advice is to think of some visual image or great spectacle, maybe inspired by a real-life wonder or just something you've made up on your own, and put that in your world. Think of where it would be, and think of how it reflects the people that built it. I think this can help in any type of setting, whether that be low magic or super high magic. The wonders of our real world were pretty crazy, right? The Great Pyramid of Giza still exists today. It has existed for thousands and thousands of years, and it still astounds the imagination of people every day. There's no reason that even if you run a fantasy world that's very mundane with hardly any magic at all, or with literally no magic at all, there's no reason that you can't still have these great wonders. People in our real world built such great wonders. Make it your own, though. Make it fun. Make it reflect your world and your tastes. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and found it interesting. I know there are plenty of other tips for world building out there, but I thought this was a small little piece of advice, just kind of like one little thing that I could share that's helped me a lot in world building this region of my world. And I don't think I've seen any other people say that you should put wonders of your world in your world. Obviously, a lot of people might assume that, but it's something I think that goes that merits saying. Doing specific world building exercises like this, I think, can also help, just in general, especially because world building can be so general as a thing to just dive into. So having a specific thing to narrow in on, to hone in on, a concrete sort of thing to world build and put in your world, I think it can focus your energy and be a good focal point for your brainstorming. I'd love to know your thoughts, and if you have your own wonders of your world that already, thought up, I would love to hear about them in the comments below. I'm working on the 3rd campaign diary video of my campaign diaries for my current campaign I'm running in my Middle Sea Mediterranean equivalent, and that should be out shortly. And hopefully, if you like this video, you might like that one too. Thank you all for watching if you've made it this far, and I will see you later with some other type of video soon. Bye-bye.